close my eyes and I can see the world that's waiting up for me, and that I call my own. And through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. And they can say I've lost my mind. I don't care, so call me crazy. We can live in a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. There's a house we can build, every room inside is filled with things from far away. Special things I compile, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say I lost my mind. I don't care, so call me crazy. Run away to a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. However big, however small, let me be part of it all. Share your dreams with me. You may be right, you may be wrong, but say that you'll bring me along to the world to see, to the world. I close my eyes to see, I close my eyes to see. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make.
Welcome to the first ever Do the Right Thing Virtual Recognition Weekend. Thank you, Dendel Hoyt, for that wonderful performance. Not only does Dendel have a beautiful voice, she's also a compelling storyteller, using her talent as a songwriter to share those stories. I encourage everyone to learn more about her by downloading her music, which is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and Amazon. I want to kick off this weekend by congratulating our Do the Right Thing student ambassadors and the thousands of young writers you represent for sharing your personal stories and for allowing us the privilege to share your inspiring words. Also, heartfelt gratitude to our amazing educators who have sacrificed so much to ensure that our youth can continue to learn and develop amidst the most challenging of circumstances. Traditionally, for the past 25 years, we have hosted the Do the Right Thing Recognition Week in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., during the month of July. However, due to COVID, unfortunately, we were unable to do so this year. Not only was this a great disappointment for all involved, but also this year is even more meaningful because 2020 marks the National Do the Right Thing program's 25th anniversary. So all of you, join me in saying happy anniversary, Do the Right Thing. We have a lot of fun and interesting activities for you this weekend. Today's itinerary will feature congratulatory messages and special readings from this year's student writings. Following that, everyone is welcome to hear our first guest speaker, Aija Mayrock, share her personal journey as a teenage dealing with bullying to becoming an anti-bullying activist and author. Following Aija, our Do the Right Thing student ambassadors will engage in a fireside chat with anti-violence advocate and author Ryan Pascal, followed by the Harlem Globetrotters and closing remarks. Before we begin today's program, I'd like to share the rules of engagement for being part of this weekend's recognition activities. Be present and bring your full self to each event, and also take care of yourself and have fun. Everyone belongs here and everyone's experiences matter. Listen with compassion and empathy. Be understanding. We all have different ways of learning, comprehending, processing information, and expressing ourselves. Be curious and ask questions, both in the chat or during Q&A. There are no stupid questions. Ask for clarification. Ask for what you need. Reach out to a Do the Right Thing staff member for support. Use inclusive language, and when you speak loudly and share your pronouns. We encourage you to be actively engaged and use the chat to connect with each other and share your comments and thoughts. No hate speech or bullying will be tolerated, and we hope we don't have to. But if we do, we reserve the right to remove any persons. You are part of the Do the Right Thing community, so let's co-create a welcoming space and treat each other with kindness and respect. Respect privacy and trust. Being part of the Do the Right Thing community requires mutual trust. Authentic conversations make groups great, but they may be private and sensitive. What is shared in this group should stay in this group. Sometimes there may be something discussed that's okay to share. If you feel that's the case, always ask for permission. Also, a reminder to parents and guardians. Please make sure to sign the media consent form for photos and videos located on our event website at DtWT2020.org if you haven't done so already. On the topic of websites, we're excited to announce that Do the Right Thing's main website has had a makeover. And starting September 21st, you can check us out at www.dtwt.org and let us know what you think. For those of you unfamiliar with how Do the Right Thing got started, here's a quick history lesson. In 1991, after the first Gulf War, the Kuwait America Foundation was established to create and fund grassroots programs here in the United States as gratitude for helping liberate Kuwait and instilling peace back to the country. In 1994, CAF launched Do the Right Thing as a pilot program in Washington, D.C. 2 years later, CAF expanded Do the Right Thing to 10 other cities and established the National Campaign to Stop Violence. Since then, the Do the Right Thing Challenge has expanded to 27 cities around the country, with over 1.2 million middle school students accepting the challenge. Over the course of the last 27 years, the Kuwait America Foundation has continued its role as founding and primary sponsor of the Do the Right Thing Challenge program, and this ongoing generosity is attributed to the dedication and support of CAF's Board of Trustees, under the guidance and leadership of its chairman, Dr. Hassan Al-Ibrahim. Dr. Hassan has dedicated his esteemed career to accessible education for all, focusing on children and youth. His passion for progressive education and helping children affected from trauma is the driving force behind his success at not only raising the public's awareness about these issues, but also creating organizations like CAF and the Kuwait Society for the Advancement of Arab Children to ensure that these needs are being addressed. It is with my great pleasure to introduce our chairman, Dr. Hassan Al-Ibrahim.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Kuwait America Foundation, I would like to congratulate the 2020 Do the Right Thing. National Students Ambassadors, your parents and your educators, and courage you have exemplified in sharing your stories and experience with all of us. You are brave beyond measures, and your honesty and advocacy for change are something all of us here in Kuwait, as well as in the United States, greatly applaud. It is with this same sincerity and resilience that I imagine you have confronted the coronavirus that has altered all our lives. None of us could have expected that 2020 would have that in store for the entire world. But as your essays have demonstrated, you are unfortunately no stranger to difficulties. Life has presented its challenges, but incredibly you have challenged back. You have asked us to rise to the occasion of parenthood, of teaching, of kindness, and of strength, envisioning a future that is brighter for all of us. The Kuwait America Foundation and the people of Kuwait are proud to support you on this journey, just as we have over 25 years. Since launching this program, over 2 million students have participated in Do the Right Thing of Challenge, and we look forward to congratulate 2 million more. Although we should all have been meeting in Washington, D.C. this past July, coming from our hometown, as in my case, Kuwait, to honor you, I am nonetheless grateful for your book of your writing, and that I look forward to reading to carry me forward in the coming months and years. Sending you my best wishes from Kuwait, and congratulations once more.
Hi, my name is Anusha Hussain, and today I wanted to read you a short excerpt from an essay by Elena Collins from Palm Beach, Florida. My mother was passed out drunk, and the cops were called. She then became very hostile. I remember her screaming, "Why? And why are you taking my children away?" That feeling was the worst thing you could imagine. It feels as though you're drowning in your own mind, all the things that she's done surrounding you until then. You can't breathe, and you're choking on your own tears, until reality hits you, the moment of freedom that you've been waiting for all your life. I wanted to take a moment to not only congratulate Elena for her beautiful and powerful words and for her courage in sharing her story, but all the 2020 ambassadors, Do the Right Thing ambassadors, for being so strong and for showing us the way. Now more than ever, you guys are the future, and I just wanted to congratulate you. And it's been an honor to read your words. And yes, congratulations on being Do the Right Thing 2020 National Ambassadors. Thank you so much.
We need to take these kids out of the street life while they're still young. We need more programs that teach young kids there is more to life than guns and drugs. We must teach the next generation that it is okay to show emotion and it's okay to not want to be outside on the block. By creating these programs, we are teaching our future youth that street life is not the place to be. The main reason the violence rate in DC is so high is because our youth are being taught at a very young age that violence is the answer, but it's not. Teaching our young Black brothers and sisters the phrase kill or be killed will only wipe us all out as a whole. We must thrive together, succeed together, or we will all fall as one. When I see a Black child, Black father, or Black mother in the headlines, it makes me think about how much we are embarrassing ourselves. We have to change, and very soon. We need to create the programs and teach our young Black kids before it's too late. An excerpt from the essay by Amari Edmonds from Washington, D.C.
Hi everyone, I'm Aija and I am so excited to be here today and to talk to all of you. I just turned 25 on Tuesday and I am an author and a poet, and my journey began, I'm going to kind of briefly go over it, when I was 8 years old. And I used to have a lisp and a stutter, and I would go to school and I started getting bullied for the way I spoke. And then as I got older, as social media became something that was like social currency and everyone had it and everyone was on it, the bullying escalated. And I suddenly dealt with bullying that was not just in person, but also physical bullying, cyberbullying, verbal bullying, all of it. And it really affected my mental health, and I didn't realize the impact that it had for so many years. During the time I was bullied, it wasn't something that was talked about the same way I think it is today, and so I didn't really tell anyone. And I also kind of thought that it was my fault because I couldn't understand why it was happening to me. So because I didn't tell anyone about it, I really struggled with it for many years. And when I was a freshman in high school, when I was 15 years old, I had transferred to another school, and there was a girl at the school that I used to go to that wound up dressing up as me for Halloween. And she posted a sign around her neck with my name on it and walked around the school. And suddenly this was posted online, and I was bombarded with all of these death threats and hate comments and cyberbullying attacks. and I didn't know what to do. And I hit this really, really dark place at that time in my life. And then I started opening up about what I had gone through. I told my parents, I started telling a few friends, and slowly it became this journey of realizing that I had dealt with bullying for so many years and that I was struggling with my mental health because I hadn't told anyone, I hadn't done anything, and I was suffering. So before I go more into my story, how I became a writer, how I used my experience in my writing and bullying and all of that, I want to share a poem with you. So throughout the last few years, so I published this book, as I mentioned, The Survival Guide to Bullying. And I'm going to go into later how I published it and all of that. But when the book came out, I started speaking to schools all over the US. And I wanted to find a way to share my story with bullying in a more engaging way and just a more like full way, you know, covering so many years. And I wrote my whole story with bullying into a 10-minute poem. And today I'm going to share a portion of that poem with you, not the whole thing, but a portion of it. And it's going to cover some of what I just talked about, but I hope you enjoy. I'm going to tell you a story about the power of words, about your own voice and being heard, the power to heal, the power to hurt. On Halloween of my freshman year, a girl I had never met who attended my old school dressed up as me as her costume. And suddenly it was like someone pressed resume. I was all consumed by cyberbullying, harassment, and my past. You see, I'd spent 8 years being bullied. Crowds would amass to telecast hate, try to obliterate their very own classmate. And so when this happened, I sunk into my chair, defeated with this blank stare in my eye, thinking, this is it. I can't keep trying to get by. A few weeks later, my life would change. It was a regular day, nothing strange, till I read the news about a boy. 16 years old, he couldn't hold on any longer, couldn't be any stronger. It said, suicide due to bullying. And something in me said, Aija, you can't wait any longer. You see, I know what it's like to lose your fight, and I know what it's like to take back your life. But how could I let kids struggle every day without showing them that it's gonna be okay? I couldn't find the answer. How do I help kids around the world? What is the answer? Do I have a voice? I didn't know. Do I have the power? I won't let go, but I'm not gonna lie, I was hesitant from head to toe. And then my mom said to me, Aija, you gotta be brave. Share your story. If not you, who will share the story of the millions of kids bullied every single year? And suddenly it all became clear, and she said to me, who do you wanna be? What do you want to achieve? What do you believe? I want to be who I needed when I was younger. I want to achieve more than I ever thought was possible. I believe in standing up. Standing up. I'm not backing up, easing up, or shutting up. I'm going to make a change. So I put pen to paper, rearranged the thoughts that poured from my brain, and created a book that goes by the name, The Survival Guide to Bullying. The book Aija needed when she was 10, 12, 15. It just came a few years late, but hopefully it would show everyone else how to communicate, love their weight, their sexual orientation, or their growth rate. Because it doesn't matter what anyone says to you. Whether you are gay, straight, trans, lost, found, alone, sad, scared, or different. We are all different, unfinished, sufficient. We all fight our own battles each day. We all must be accepting of our wounds that don't always fade away. So I'll leave you with this and say, I promised myself that I would take a stand, try to save others by holding out my hand, but I cannot fix this problem on my own. I need people like you to get up, hold your head high, raise your hand and say, I will not let another kid feel like someone else's prey. Whether you are the bully, the bullied, or the bystander. Today is a new day. Stand up, don't back down, and be brave. So that's a portion of the poem that I mentioned. And to kind of take you back a little bit, so I was bullied for about 8 years. And as I mentioned during that time, I didn't speak up for myself. I did a little bit in the beginning, but because I was bullied for the way I spoke, I very quickly stopped. And eventually, I kind of lost hope that anyone would understand my experience or that anyone was going through the same thing, which looking back was so wrong because there were so many people in my school and in my community that were being bullied as well. But I very quickly gave up on myself. And part of that, I think, was that in my school, like at the time, students could bully each other and teachers wouldn't do anything. They would watch it happen or they would contribute to it. And so it was a really toxic environment where that just was allowed to happen. And as I wrote my book and tried to figure out, so when I started writing my book, I was 16 years old. And as I mentioned, I saw this story about this boy that had taken his life because of bullying. And I knew that pain and that hopelessness, but I also knew that there was a way to survive it. And I was so angry and I was so heartbroken that this boy, that no one showed up for him and that he had given up and he had taken his life. And I wanted to find a way to show young people all around the world that you could survive it and that there are and there were ways to get help, to stand up for yourself, even if it didn't seem possible. And so I started writing this book and I wrote it kind of like a diary in the beginning. I had no idea that it would ever be published, but I just wrote the book that I kind of wished I'd always had, but I never did have. And then I self-published it, which I want to talk about a little later because I know many of you like to write yourself. But I self-published it and it was online, it was free to do. And then a few months after that, Scholastic bought the book, they published it, it came out, it became a bestseller. And I started speaking all over the US and I spoke to over 4 million people in 4 or 5 years. And I started to see that bullying existed everywhere and that it was this huge issue that wasn't talked about enough. Things weren't being done and that mental health was something that was really, really affected by bullying amongst obviously other things, but that bullying was really affecting students' mental health. And they were coming up to me after I would speak and telling me their stories. So I kind of want to go back to a few things that it's really important to remember when we talk about bullying. And that is that bullying affects so many millions of young people around the world. And that so many of those young people, like statistics have shown, they don't ask for help. They don't report it. They don't stand up for themselves. And a lot of that is because there is this fear that if you stand up for yourself, nothing is going to change or you'll get bullied more. But 50% of the time, if you stand up for someone that is being bullied, that person will never be bullied again. Bullying really is this cycle where oftentimes the person that is bullied can also become the bully, can also become the bystander. And oftentimes we all are part of that cycle at some point in our life. And it's really, really, really important to stand up and say something when you see it, because you could literally be changing someone's life forever with just one sentence and you have no idea. For me, when I was going through it, no one stood up for me. And I really believe had someone said something, it really would have changed my experience. The other thing is that, there's so many types of bullying, and I know because most of us are going to school from home or working from home now, cyberbullying is a huge problem, as I'm sure all of you know. And looking back on my experience, I really wish that I had taken more precautions with social media when I was in school, but instead I didn't. And I think it's really important to make sure that you block and report people that are bullying you, that you stand up for other people in the comments when you see it happen, because although you might think that a lot of people, think that whatever you're seeing with bullying online is wrong, if no one is standing up for someone, then it just seems like no one cares or everyone's in agreement. So it's really important to take that stand online, even if you think it's not going to make a difference. It really does. And oftentimes it makes people not contribute to cyberbullying that's going on. And using those block and report buttons, making sure that your account is private. That's something that obviously now, like, I have a big social media presence, but at the time when I was in school and I didn't always make my account private, and I really wish that I had, because it would have prevented like so much unwanted cyberbullying from happening. The other thing that I write about in my book is, you know, I know that we all live on social media and we love it, but sometimes it can get too much, and it can get too much for your mental health. And sometimes you don't even realize how cyberbullying can be affecting you. So taking a break, logging off, taking, like, I call it like a vacation from Instagram or TikTok or whatever it might be, can really, really, really help with your mental health. And it's something I really recommend you do if you're experiencing cyberbullying, or if you're just noticing that the more time you spend online, the more it's affecting you. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on is the way that bullying affects mental health is so enormous, and it's something that really isn't talked about enough. As I mentioned, there were so many years that I didn't tell anyone about what I was going through with bullying. And I did struggle with depression and anxiety. And because I kept it a secret, it just got worse and worse. And so when I started doing research to write my book, I started realizing that this was a really, really common problem, and that a lot of young people didn't know how to talk to someone in their life, how to ask for help, and how to continue having those conversations even when it seemed like no one was doing anything. So in my book, I write a lot about creating a top 5 list of the adults in your life that you trust. This could be anyone from a teacher, a guidance counselor, a family member, a neighbor, preferably an adult, and going to them and telling them what you're going through, how you're feeling mental health wise, thing like that. Or you know, there are like a lot of amazing online resources for therapy, but just basically having someone that can stand by your side and help you get through whatever it is you're dealing with. And so I just really, really encourage all of you to keep that list near you at all times, because even if it's not bullying related, we all go through things, and it's really important to make sure you have people that you can go to and ask for help. My biggest mistake was that I didn't talk about what I was going through, and I thought I could go through it alone, and it affected me really negatively because of that. But if for some reason you are in a moment of crisis or you don't have someone to go to, there are also really, really incredible resources. Crisis Text Line is one of them. I've worked with them before, and they are a 24/7 anonymous hotline that you can text. If you just Google Crisis Text Line, I believe the number is 741-741, and you send home in the text. And you can speak to a counselor if you are going through some sort of mental health crisis or struggle. That's always there for you. And also, you know, checking in on your friends, people within your school or community that you think might be having a really hard time, might be going through something that they're not expressing. People that check in with others in the community that they think, even if they're not sure, like, those people could really be changing someone's life. And I just think it's really, really important to make sure that you are showing up for others in your school as well as yourself. Because in order to really conquer this issue, we have to come at it from all sides. And that is standing up for bullying when you see it happen, asking for help, or reporting it when it happens to you, and also showing to my career. So I know a lot of you are writers and love writing. I always really liked writing, but I also have some learning disabilities. So in school, it was really hard for me in school, and I never thought that I would be a writer, or definitely never thought I would be a poet. But I was able to eventually make those dreams reality. And so I would write all the time when I was in school. And then when I was 16, as I mentioned, I started writing this book. But I would just write for fun. Like, I didn't do it, you know, for any competitions or anything like that. So I would just write for fun. And then when I wrote this book, I decided to self-publish it, which is something that any of you can do. I use this website. Actually, I'm not going to say it because I don't really recommend the specific website that I use, but I know that people have had a lot of success with like Amazon, self-publishing and stuff like that. And essentially anyone can put their book up as an ebook. And I self-published it. And from there, my book was discovered by Scholastic, which was such a dream come true. But the other things that I did was I entered some competitions that like anyone can do, like the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. And through that, I entered my poetry. And like, I think when I was a junior or senior in high school, I wound up winning a gold and silver medal from this competition. And those moments were so important for me because they showed me that me writing about my experience with bullying, with mental health, could actually had purpose, had validation. People liked it, people gave it an award. And I know that awards can, you know, they don't mean everything at all, but for someone that is really struggling with their self-worth and their life purpose, it was a huge moment for me. And so I think it's really awesome that if you do love writing and have this passion or any sort of creativity or arts or anything, to find amazing competitions like the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, which is free to enter. You enter it digitally, I believe, so like you can just do it from your computer, and things like that can be really amazing. And also to know that you can turn that passion project, that book that you want to write, that film you want to make into something and share it on social media. There's so many incredible tools that we have now with technology. And over the last 7 years, like I had 0 followers and I built up to almost 250,000 followers by just sharing my poetry videos online. So there's just so many things that you can do with technology, and with finding alternative ways to share your story, to express your voice and yourself, and to use writing as a tool to make a difference, to make a change. And so I just really encourage all of you to remember that, to do that, to explore that, because it's a really incredible feeling to see that your writing and your words could actually make an impact. So yeah, that's a little bit about bullying, mental health, my journey with writing, but now I would love to do some questions. And see if any of you have some questions. Hi.
Aija, thank you so much for being with us. Shireen here with the Kuwait America Foundation. I know I can speak for everyone. That was incredible. We're honestly so happy to have you with us. Between the book, your story, all of the advice, which I think our students could really use, and so could family with us, educators. A lot of our students do write about bullying, either being on the receiving end or being a bully themselves. And I think that your advice is really invaluable. So thank you. I had questions of my own, but I'm actually excited to turn it over to the group. And if there's time for my questions, I will get them in. But definitely I know our time is limited and want to be able to open it up to the group. So.
Awesome. So my name is Jemica and I'm here helping out and co-moderating. So we have a question from Derek, who is going to ask it directly to you on camera. So we're going to go ahead and unmute him and let him share that with you.
Awesome.
Hi, Aija. Thank you so much for being here today. That was a fantastic and powerful poem. Thank you so much for reading that today. And also, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
In listening to you tell your story, my question is definitely around the subject of mental health. And I want to know, with the declining mental health, how or where did you find the inner strength to speak up and start your writing? Was there someone who introduced you to it? Where did that come from, especially having such a negative view at the time?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. At the time that I was actually going through the bullying, I never would imagine that anyone would read my writing, because I was struggling so much at that point that for me, writing was just an outlet to try to express myself, to try to find some sort of meaning in what I had been dealing with and my own mental health journey. But as I use writing as a form of therapy, not to replace it by any means, but as a form of it, I started to build up my own self-worth and my own confidence. So that whole process took like 5 years or, it was a long time. But towards the end of that process, I would say more towards when I was a junior or senior in high school, I started to feel this sense of purpose in my writing. And I think a lot of people experience that when you find something that like you really love in life, you know that that is your truth and that you have to speak it no matter what. And so for me, it took a very long time, and I don't encourage anyone to like rush that process, because I wouldn't have been ready to share my work before then. But when I got to that point, eventually, like I was ready, and nothing could replace that sense of like, I have to speak.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that. We have another question from Albie in the chat. She says, "Hi, Aija. Really excited to have you with us today. What would you say to parents to help their child if he or she or them is being bullied?"
I'm really glad that you asked that, and I didn't touch on that. I usually do, but I'm so glad that you asked that. So number one, my mom noticed something was off with me during the years I was bullied, but I did not express it to her. I did not tell her, as I mentioned. And she could tell because I had, at certain points, I would like lose a lot of weight. I would kind of become more introverted in myself. I didn't want to see people. I didn't like leaving the house. I would wear baggy clothes. A lot of certain habits that I usually had about like expressing myself changed, and I was becoming much more inward and much more afraid to step out in the world as my normal self. And she would try to have these conversations with me. And again, like I was not good at expressing what I was going through. But I think if I could go back, one thing I wished had been done slightly differently, and nothing on her because she didn't know at all what was going on, was that oftentimes young people, I found, don't like to share their story when they feel like it's going to be made this huge deal and the parents are going to like go into the school or speak out on behalf of them, and suddenly they lose all control. And it's true that sometimes when a parent goes into school, things can be made worse. That certainly happened in my situation. I know so many stories of where that happened. So I think the biggest thing is whether your child has told you that something is going on or you just assume, to show them that you're going to be there. You're going to be that partner that is going to help advocate for them. You're going to be there every day to ask a question about their day, to have open conversation, and just assure them that that conversation stays between the two of you. I think creating that really tight-knit bond and relationship where they know they can come to you, they won't be judged, nothing will be taken out of their control, but you will together come up with solutions on how to navigate this is like the most crucial thing. And through that, you'll help build that trust for where you can, take it to another step of maybe going into school or speaking to a teacher or something like that.
Awesome. Thanks again for that response. We have another question from a student, Alicia. She says, "Thank you so much for sharing your story, Aija. How did you build self-confidence and learn to love yourself?"
That is still a journey I'm on. I am not there yet, but it's gotten a lot better in years. I would say some things that really helped me were when I was 17, I went to this like acting storytelling class, and I'm very creative. I love writing. I love storytelling. And in that class, I met people that had had similar experiences to me and that liked the same things as me. And within that group, I found a sense of belonging. And through that, I built confidence. Like, oh, I can have friendships. I can, people like to see me express myself in this creative way, and they're supportive, and like there's no bullying happening here. So that was a really life-changing experience for me. Another thing that I did and I continue to do is I went to therapy, and that was something I really needed to do and something that really has helped me and continues to help me. And now in this new world, there's so many online alternatives that I really, really recommend. And another thing that I did that I think has been really crucial is to work within myself on building my own relationship with myself. And this is obviously a much longer conversation, but really work on loving myself, whether that be through writing 3 pages every day about the things that I really love and admire within myself, or you know, taking care of myself, whether it be like mentally or physically, doing things to show yourself that you care for yourself. That's a mouthful, but you know what I mean. I think there's so many facets to building that confidence, and there's no one path, but I think it's important to just every day work on that. And it, as I said, I'm not there yet, but it's something I continue to do.
Aija, amazing. Thank you so much. With the chat is, we have several questions in the chat,
Awesome.
so I want to make sure we get to those. Molly, one of our students asks, Aija, if you had not been bullied, do you think you would view the world differently, and how?
Definitely. I always say the last chapter of my book is called The Benefits of Being Bullied, which I know sounds just ridiculous. But I think that from almost any negative situation in my own life, I have tried in the years following to find the positives I've taken from that. And what I've realized is that I would not be anywhere near who I am without my experience of being bullied. Not that I wished it had happened, and not that I wished it on anyone, but it did change me, and it changed the way I saw the world, the way I see people, and it brought me onto this path. So for that, I feel lucky that I got through it, and lucky that I've been able to share my story and my experience with other people.
We're all lucky that you were able to take that experience and put it into a book and share it with us, with so much positive feedback and attitude. Another question from another student. Aija, you are super inspirational. I was wondering what process you went through to publish your writing.
So
and that's from Aina Marzia.
First of all, thank you very much. I wrote The Survival Guide to Bullying over the course of 3 years. And then I self-published it, as I mentioned, online as an ebook. It's free to self-publish. I think I made it like the cheapest price that I could make it, just so that everyone could have access to it. And yeah, it's something that, you know, if you just Google self-publishing ebooks, it's something I really recommend. I don't recommend necessarily doing the print self-publishing because it's very expensive, and I just think, you know, we're all on our phones and computers and whatnot. So yeah, my experience with self-publishing was really good. It was really lucky because shortly after I did self-publish, Scholastic, which was like a dream publisher, picked it up and they bought the book. And then since then, my second book, Dear Girl, which is my first book of poetry, which came out like 2 weeks ago, I think, that I sold to a publisher called Andrews McMeel. So yeah, I started in the untraditional path and then have kind of wound up in the traditional path as of right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. We have a question that's going to be asked live to you by a student named Elizabeth Wright. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute her now.
Sounds good.
Hi. Your words were so inspirational. Thank you for sharing that with us. I wanted to ask your advice on a freshman who had past issues with being bullied by teachers, and then the students were influenced. What's your advice on that?
Yeah, so that's something that I also dealt with. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I would like raise my hand in class, and my teacher, because I had a lisp at the time, would be like, "What's that, Ava? What do you have to say?" Mimicking the way I spoke. And because of that, I completely shut down and I stopped speaking, stopped participating. It affected my grades, and students, as you mentioned, joined in. When it comes to that, I would say there are a few ways to handle it. One, you could kind of speak with some friends and like classmates of theirs to kind of speak to the teacher afterwards, like after class, and talk to them about why like that can't happen, or in class to have other people stand up along with the student, or to go to another teacher or another person in administration to talk about what is going on in the classroom and with the teacher. And then another alternative entirely would be to talk to the parent or family member and try to figure out a plan of like, you know, who do we speak to and stuff like that. So I think there are many ways, but I think it's really important to go with someone. I'm all for standing up for yourself, but sometimes it's much easier and has more impact when you have some friends or someone else join in with you. And remember that sometimes things aren't solved on the first try, which is really unfortunate, but it happened to me a lot. And to just please, please, please don't give up advocating for yourself or for your friend, to keep going in, keep having those conversations. Sorry, I hope I didn't break up. I just saw your internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, the same thing happened to me. No worries. I think this ties in really well with a question that we have in the chat from Ansley. And she asks, was it hard for you to open up to your mom or your trusted adult? Did you feel like you could talk to them easily?
It was really hard for me. And it was nothing that my mom and my family did at all, because they were there for me the whole time. But I had been so conditioned to believe that no one was going to do anything, or that it wouldn't have mattered, or that it was my fault, because that's the environment I was in at school. And after so many years of that, you start to believe that. But I really, really, really wished I was able to see past that, because all of those years, my parents were there. And even if they didn't fully understand, they would have done everything they could to try and understand. And it would have been better for sure than me trying to handle it on my own. So to answer your question, I didn't really tell my mom what was going on until that girl dressed up as me for Halloween. And I think on that day, something just changed in me, because I didn't even know this girl. So it was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know. I guess someone was calling me. I'm so sorry. I'm still very adjusting to Zoom and virtual stuff. And so for some reason, my phone or my computer was ringing. Anyway, so the day that cyberbullying incident happened, where this girl dressed up as me, I think I started to realize that this had gone past health-wise so intensely that I just kind of broke open and started telling my mom. And that was honestly a gift in disguise, because I had been keeping it all inside for way too long.
Eliza, also in the chat, she asks, since publishing your work, have you heard from any of your former bullies?
This is a question I always get, and unfortunately the answer is no. But I have gotten 2 messages from girls that were really popular in my school. And they were girls that I always looked at their life and I was like, wow, their life is amazing. They have so many friends. I wish that I had that life. And since then, I've gotten 2 messages from 2 different girls, and I don't think they know that they both sent these messages, saying that that they were dealing with bullying for so many years while I knew them or knew of them, and they never told anyone. And that my story showed them that they had been keeping this inside for so long, and that they had been really struggling. And for me, that was so eye-opening, because I always looked at these girls like they had this perfect life. And I wish that I had their friends and were in their circles. Meanwhile, they were struggling and no one knew. And that's the really sad thing about bullying, is that it's invisible sometimes. And it's so hard to know if someone else is going through something similar to what you're dealing with.
I think that's one of the things for me personally, just as an adult now, you know, I never really considered myself as being bullied. I was definitely never a bully. But there were times where I would find myself sort of on the outs with a friend group, right? And then suddenly you were sort of meant to feel alone, unwanted, find another group. And at the time, I never would have thought of that as bullying. But now when I look back, it was a very sort of, it was invisible even to me that I was being bullied, but the impact was still there. And so I wonder kind of what sort of advice you would have in that kind of situation.
Well, actually, first I want to touch on something that I forgot to say earlier, which I wanted to break down the 4 different types of bullying. So there are 4 different types of bullying. There is verbal bullying, which would be like teasing or taunting someone or harassing someone. There is physical bullying, which would be like any sort of physical harm. Cyberbullying, which is any type of bullying that happens online or on your phone. And then there's social bullying, which is a little bit more hard to pinpoint because it is that like spreading rumors, excluding people. But the thing that makes, I don't know if any of you had this experience, but when I was growing up, a lot of adults would say, well, it's not bullying, it's kids being kids. It's a part of growing up. And that's really not true. And the thing that makes bullying different from a one-off incident of someone not being nice is that it happens over and over and over. It's repetitive. It's that you go into school every day and you are verbally bullied, you are socially bullied, you are physically bullied or cyberbullied, whatever it is, it happens over and over. So in response to your question, I would say for someone dealing with something like social bullying, where it's a little harder to see, and also it's a little harder to acknowledge within yourself because you're like, I don't really know what's going on. Like, you know, is this just my friend group? Is first to really think about and maybe even write down everything that's been going on. Like, is it something that happened to me a lot when I was in middle school is I'd sit down at the lunch table and everyone would get up and leave. So the first time that happened, I was like, oh, well, they wanted to move lunch tables. But then every day when that happened, and if I followed them, they would do the same thing over and over. That can be really, really detrimental to your mental health. And so writing down everything that happens and then talking to maybe one person from that group or going to a teacher or administrator in your school, or again, one of those trusted adults, and explaining to them that you don't really know what this is, but this is what's happening. It's really affecting you and that you need to figure out what to do about it. And so whether that be someone within that direct like peer group or an adult, making sure that you are constantly bringing it up and advocating for yourself, because I know it seems sometimes small, but the repercussions of that can be really difficult to handle and also could grow into more visible types of bullying.
Absolutely. Anna in the chat asks, did you ever see that happen to someone else and want to help but couldn't?
Bullying?
Yes.
Definitely. And this is why I really like to talk about the cycle that is bullying, because I have seen it happen when I was in middle school and high school and elementary school all the time, and I didn't speak up. And now I know, being on the other side of it, had I spoken up, had someone spoken up for me, it could have totally changed my life or someone else's life. And looking back, I know the reason I didn't speak up was because I was scared. I was scared that I would be bullied more. I was scared that I would be ostracized. I was scared that my friends would not think I was cool or something. But, you know, at the end of the day, it can really, really affect someone's life in a way that, you know, is so impossible to even comprehend. So taking that step, I know it's terrifying, is just so, so important. And again, if you can have like a friend or a few friends take that step with you, that's great as well. Like, there are many ways to go about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. We have another question from a student who would like to ask you. So her name is Carla. I'm going to go ahead and unmute her now.
Hi. Love the poem. So my question is, how did you go about writing your book? I know you did say that you started it off almost as a diary, and it ended up being published.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your question. So like I said, I started writing it as a diary. And then when I started to realize, like, maybe this is something that I wanted to put out in the world, then I started to interview people. So I would talk to other young people that had been bullied, that had different experiences than mine. I would talk to some psychologists, some parents, because I wanted to try to really create this guide that could help as many people as possible. And then do my own research on the effects of cyberbullying, the effects of bullying on your mental health. So I could really, really work to creating a guide that is as perfect as possible. And once I had done that over the course of 3 years, I was in high school too, so like it wasn't full time. Then I went about self-publishing it, and that took a few months.
Incredible, thank you for that. A question from a parent who says, Larry Walker says, hello, Aija. As a parent, when your child opens up to you about being bullied, but asks you not to get involved because it will only make things worse, what would you suggest a parent do?
So this is such a difficult situation, and I'm really glad that you asked this question. You know, when I was in 3rd grade, I remember at the very beginning of what was happening, I told my mom, and she went into the school and spoke to the school, and they put me and the girl that was bullying me in a room and closed the door, and they said, you can't come out till you work it out, which is like I don't know if it still happens, but it was very, very common back then. And it was terrible, and it only made things worse, and it only made more people bully me, and I was just more and more ostracized. So when a kid says that, like, there is a lot of valid reason why, even though that's not true all the time, that it would make things worse, and even though at the end of the day, it is really important to take action and like make sure there is a plan in place to help your child. So I would say the biggest thing is, like I said earlier, creating that really tight-knit bond and that trusted bond where every single day you have these conversations. How is it affecting how you're feeling? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling, you know, anxious? Like, what are the physical symptoms that you're feeling? And, you know, what do you want to do about it? And over time, as long as you show that trust and that tight bond, I think even over a couple of days, you might help them get to a place where you both can go into the school together. I think that's something I wish had been done in my situation. I think had I been in the room with like the teacher and my mom, that might have changed things a bit, because I think part of that fear of like things getting worse is a lack of control. You know, oftentimes when young people are bullied, everything is already out of their control. And so to be in the room, to be learning to speak up and advocate for themselves, along with the parent there, along with the teacher, the administrator, I think can be really helpful. But again, I think it is that journey of like building that trust, taking it step by step, creating kind of like an action plan, I think could be really great. And maybe that action plan builds to getting to the school. But yeah, I think that relationship is the most crucial thing, because you just don't want your child to stop telling you about what's going on.
Absolutely. And as a parent of a child heading into the tweens, I really personally appreciate the question and answer. We are going to take, I think there are 3 more questions in the chat, and we'll have to close it out there. I know we are running short on time. I want to make sure we get to everyone's questions, so we'll do them quickly, hopefully. But the last 3 are, hi Aija, I loved your poem, and this is student Ikalin. And she's saying, thanks so much for sharing. When you started sharing your story to schools around the US, were you ever shy about public speaking? And if so, how did you get over shyness?
Thank you for your question. And 100%. So as I mentioned, I used to have a lisp and a stutter, and I was bullied for the way I spoke. So like to stand up in front of 100 people was terrifying. And to be honest, it still kind of scares me. Like I'm looking at the participants, there's 102 people. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't see you in front of me, but this is still really scary. But you know, I said something earlier that I feel really strongly about, which is when you are speaking from your heart, when you are speaking from your soul, and like you are saying something that you so believe in your bones and you know you have to say, there is some sort of confidence that I think arrives. And I have messed up, I've said the wrong thing, I've forgotten the line while performing all the time. But because I'm speaking from this place within that is telling me I have to speak, I think that really, really helps me. And that's taken years to develop. When I first started speaking, I was so shy. So it really takes a long time. It takes practice. It takes testing your comfort zone. But, you know, if you are shy about public speaking, first of all, I think that's like the number 1 or number 2 fear in the world. That's very, very common. But don't give up on yourself. You know, just keep trying it. Maybe do it in front of like your sibling or your parents or a family member, and then a few friends, and build up to it, because in time you'll get more and more comfortable.
Amazing, thank you. Really great advice, especially for our writers here, hopefully aspiring public speakers as well. The last question from the chat is from Delilah, and she asks, hello, Aija. Where do you think you would be now if you didn't tell your mom? Do you think your life at the moment would be that different?
That is a great question. It's really hard to say because I have no way of knowing, but I don't think I would be in as good of a space mental health wise. When I told my mom, she also encouraged me to speak to a therapist and to take that step to talking to a professional. And that's something I really needed, and I didn't realize I needed at the time. But later on in my life, like in my later teen years, in my early 20s, it's something I was like, oh, wow, no, there are a lot of things I need to work through. So I think had I not been able to speak to her about that and be encouraged and supported, which I was really lucky about because I know not everyone is supported to speak to a professional, I think I would be struggling more mental health wise. So I do think it's really important. And again, if there isn't someone in your life that you can talk to or that is helping you, there are so many options online of like therapy services or hotlines if you were in a crisis. And I just really encourage you to use some method of speaking to a professional.
Awesome. So we wanted to thank you so much for everyone for their questions. We are going to have another session after this. So if you did not get a chance to ask your question to Aija, we will have another opportunity to ask questions later on for more involvement. So I'm going to pass things back over to Shireen, and thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Again, like Jemika said, also, if you have any questions, feel free to email them to us. I'm sure that we could also pass those along to Aija to answer as well. Aija, thank you so much for being here with us. This has been incredible. I don't want our time to end, but I know it is. I also wanted to say for our students who are here with us today, you will all be receiving a copy of Aija's book in the mail after this. So we're really excited to be able to share that with you. She's given us some of the tidbits, but you will each have your own copy after the session. So look out for that. Aija, again, thank you so much. And that's all for us.
Thank you. Thank you all for your questions and for joining me here today. This was so great, and I feel so lucky to have been able to talk with all of you.
Thank you.
Hi.
And I will be reading a few excerpts from an essay of one of our 2020 Do the Right Thing National Student Ambassadors from Las Vegas, Nevada, Ariana Wright. Before reading from this essay, I would first like to congratulate Ariana for not only having the courage to stand up against bullying in her own experiences, but also having the courage to write this essay and speak out against youth violence. As Ariana explains in her essay, youth violence can come in many shapes and sizes and affects young children to young adults. I would also like to congratulate Ariana's parents, educators, and peers who clearly played a big role in Ariana's life and who also consequently became an important part of the Do the Right Thing program this year. 2020 has been a difficult year for many of us, but it has also been a year of learning that even through the most negative of circumstances, we can also find solutions. This is one of Ariana's main messages in her essay, that giving up is never the answer. In writing on youth violence, Ariana says that time and effort are the words of the day.
She says that next time you think about harming yourself or others, know that there's always another way. She closes her essay by quoting a conversation she once had with her cousin. I will always remember saying the saying that my cousin told me, Ariana writes. Don't cut your wrists, it's not paper. Don't judge your shape or body, it's not a book. And don't end your life, it's not a movie. Congratulations once again to Ariana Wright for becoming a 2020 Do the Right Thing National Student Ambassador and for being among the first Do the Right Thing National Ambassadors of our virtual National Recognition Week.
Hi, my name is Marina Kundu, and I'm a board member and activist for a couple of causes I care a lot about. One is education for underserved communities in rural areas, and the other is animal protection and animal rights. I am very happy to participate in Do the Right Thing this year. I had the privilege of reading an essay by Caleb Buck from Utah, and I want to congratulate him, as well as the other student ambassadors and finalists, for writing such powerful essays from the heart, from their own experience, that really make a mark on all of those of us who read them and who have the privilege to get to know them a little bit. Caleb talks about bullying in his essay. He was a bully himself, and he was bullied. And bullying is such a pervasive and damaging thing in our society. It can leave scars on victims that last their whole lives, and it can also damage the bullies themselves, who are coming from a place of pain and aggression in many cases. And I think for Caleb, not only does he talk about his experiences, but then he takes a step back and he talks about bullying in general and about how we can stop it. He really gives us a call to action, and I found that all the more powerful based on where he's coming from. So let me read a few words from his carefully written essay and congratulate him again. I want to wish him the best and wish all the student ambassadors the best in their lives, and keep doing what you're doing, keep bearing witness, keep talking about it and bringing attention to such important issues, and hopefully we can end youth violence. So here's Caleb's essay, part of it. I think that for youth violence to go away, we have to stop treating others as less. And we have to do everything in our power to stand up for people instead of pushing them down. I once was a bully. I know what it's like to push others down, and it's not fun. In fact, I regret doing it a lot. If you see someone picking on someone else, don't just stand there and watch. Do something about it. Tell an adult. Try to stick up for that person. Not only standing up for someone will help people, but also just being nice in general. If you see someone that looks like they're having a bad day, smile, wave, say hi, or ask them how their day's going. Youth violence isn't just kids fighting. It's bullying, spreading rumors, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Yes, all of these things count as youth violence, but we can stop it. We can stop it if we try. Hurting others doesn't just hurt the person or group of people you're hurting. It also hurts you. Hurting others grows on you like a vine. It digs into your skin and drinks from the river of blood that pumps in your veins. Being a bully isn't just an action or a decision. Once you start bullying, it becomes who you are. But you don't have to stay a bully. That decision is on you. Thank you, Kelly.
Hello, everyone. We should have students with us right now. This is a exclusive students only event. So if you find yourself as one of our students grown-ups, you could just join us in the waiting room for this session, take a stretch break, a bathroom break, and come on back in 45 minutes or so. Everyone else, my name is Shireen. I am the program director for the Kuwait America Foundation. I have worked with the organization for 15 years, probably most importantly as a summer intern with the Do the Right Thing program. I'm so happy to have you all here with us celebrating on Zoom, Facebook Live, and all of our social media platforms, and really feel immensely privileged to be able to welcome all of you into, and some of you back into, the DtWT family. Having worked with the organization for 15 years, I really can attest firsthand to the beauty of this community we've built and the relationships we nurture through the very program. Year after year, I am left in awe of our national student ambassadors, of you in particular, of your courage in sharing your difficult and traumatic experiences, of your honesty, and of your insightfulness. So thank you really and truly for sharing your stories with us. On that note, I'm excited to be here with 18-year-old activist and writer Ryan Pasquel, who joins us today from her hometown of Los Angeles, California. Ryan serves on the National Students Demand Action Advisory Board, working to prevent gun violence and to register young voters. She has written several pieces that reflect the social justice work she pursues and has been published in Teen Vogue, 17, USA Today, and BuzzFeed. Next fall, she will be a freshman at Yale University. For all of our students, we'll be opening up this session for Q&A at the end. We ask that you just follow the same platform that you did before with the hand raise option or putting them into the chat. Otherwise, we're ready to get started. Ryan, I can't quite see you, but really, it's so wonderful to have you here with us today for what promises to be a great conversation about two of your passions, social justice and writing.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so excited to be here. I really am. I have loved writing ever since I was a kid. I was you guys' age when I was, writing and submitting to contests as well and stuff. And so to know that I can be a part of someone else's journey it's just a very powerful thing for me. And I'm really grateful to be here with you guys.
Incredible. So I gave a very brief version of your bio, but would love for you to introduce yourself to the group. What should everyone know about you as we get started?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the bio says it all. I have been working with Students Demand Action, which is a grassroots gun violence prevention organization under the umbrella of Every Town for Gun Safety. And we have over 400 student groups at different schools and in communities who are working on the ground in their areas to find solutions for violence in their areas, depending on their own situations. And I've just had such an impactful time there with them. And I've been working with them for 2 years now. I think it's been 2 years, about maybe a little more. And I'm excited to talk more about my journey with them a little later on. And yeah, that has just kind of pivoted me into writing. I've always loved to write, but I've never really shared my writing at all. And that was honestly a new concept for me. I had always read like articles online, but I never thought about the process of getting it published or anything. And so when I finally had that opportunity, and when I had people in my life who opened up those opportunities for me, it was something that I was very grateful to experience. And it's something that I have enjoyed and that I love. And yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, the bio said it all. But yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I think we'll get started. I know that in speaking with you before, you sort of your kind of your two passions, social justice work and writing. So I think we'll start with the social justice work and just really ask, what does that mean to you? What does it really look like on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I think most of the work that I'm doing now is a lot of voter registration work. You know, we're 51 days away from the election. This is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. And Gen Z millennials are a huge percentage of voters that could be voting in this next election. It's just about whether or not we are there to show up. And I want to be as much of a part of the solution as to why sometimes we don't show up to register these voters. And so I'm phone banking, and we are texting and calling young people. One thing that I do on the advisory board is we work a lot to support students who have ideas and want to implement them, but maybe don't have the resources or the know-how to actually execute them. And so just last week, we had a movie night that one of our student leaders in Ohio organized, where they watched a movie on Netflix all together. Afterward, they had a discussion about the movie, and then they talked about voting, how to register to vote. And it was just awesome because, you know, that's an unconventional way for students to get together and talk about voting, but also, you know, be entertained. They're watching a movie, you're pulling in people who maybe aren't super on board with the idea of voter reg and voting, but they do want to watch a movie and they want to interact with other students. And so just working and supporting students on the ground who are doing that work as well is another way that we're really working to register young voters. But in terms of gun violence work, it's really kind of the same scenario where we are working to really just support students on the ground who are doing work in their areas, and then also doing work on my own as well. I know kind of how I got started, which I'll talk a little bit about more later as well, but how I got started was I hosted our school's walkout 2 years ago in honor of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas shooting victims. And that was an eye-opening experience for me about organizing and just the climate in which our country is in right now altogether. But again, I'll get more into that later. But I just did want to touch on that as well. But yeah, on a daily basis, it's talking to young voters, talking to other people within our organization, and talking to students about what ideas they have, what we can do to support those ideas, and training our volunteers. We have, like I said, we have over 400 groups. So that means that we have thousands of students in action volunteers. And so we develop and host trainings for them to then take back to their groups. And those trainings include how to relational organize, which is basically like organizing between your networks and your friend groups, which is probably the easiest way and the most efficient way right now that we're in quarantine. You can text in a group chat, or you can hit someone up on Instagram or Facebook or something, all the way to, you know, talking to the press. If they are doing an event and they want exposure and they want to make sure their community is seeing what they're doing, talking to the press, being interviewed. So, you know, we're offering a wide variety of trainings to our volunteers. But yeah, that's what every day pretty much looks like.
How did you first get started? I know you just touched upon that. But would you say, was that 2 years ago? Was that sort of the catalyst? Was there a particular turning point? You know, the students that are here with us as well, they're sort of, you know, through their essays are speaking up, and wondering if there was a turning point for you where you said, I need to get involved, and I can really use my voice to do that.
Yeah, I think when the Marjory Stoneman Douglas shooting happened in 2018, that really woke me up. I remember for some reason I wasn't in class. I was at home. Maybe I like got out early that day or something, but I remember I was at home. I was doing my homework and I got like the notification on my phone that there had just been a shooting in Florida at a high school where 17 students had died. And I was watching the live footage and seeing the students' interviews and seeing everything that was happening. And I had never experienced that sort of cataclysm in my like conscious lifetime. We've had other shootings. I was kind of too young to really understand them or to really even be paying attention to the news really. And so that was the first thing that I had ever seen like that, where I actually was aware of what was happening. And seeing the students not only talk about their experience, but saying things like things need to change. You know, we need to see reform. We need to see changes. That also is something that was so interesting to me because, you know, at the time, I think I was a sophomore. I didn't know that gun violence prevention was a thing. I didn't know that there could be changes made that could potentially prevent gun violence. I literally just thought, you know, this is something that we have to deal with. This is something that's a part of our society. It's just a problem and we just have to deal with it. And so that kind of led me into this deep research about what is gun violence prevention? What does that look like? What are the potential solutions? How long has this been happening? And I really just found myself in this wormhole of wanting to do something about it. And so that's when I got in touch with an organization that was mobilizing students to host walkouts in their communities. And that organization was Everytown. And Everytown was so incredibly supportive. They were offering like counseling and coaches to help students get through this, because for a lot of students, including myself, this is our first experiences with organizing, especially organizing around gun violence. And so I ended up co-hosting actually my school's walkout with another friend of mine. And we had an amazing turnout, and it really just was a memorial for the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting victims, and to honor their lives, because we know they were cut so short in such a tragic event. And so after that, I think it was maybe 2 weeks after that, Everytown then saw this need. There are students everywhere. They just hosted this walkout. There's so much momentum, but they want to do more. What can they do? And that is when they launched Students Demand Action. And but they wanted students to be on board with them. They wanted students who are going to help them and guide them as we create this organization together. And so I applied to their brand new advisory board, having no idea what I was getting myself into. And like a month later, I got an email saying, "Hi, like we really want to invite you to be a part of this advisory board. We loved your essays, and we really just would love to have you on board." And that has just taken me on a journey I honestly could have never imagined being on. Working with students and even working with survivors, that is something that's incredibly important. But then also realizing through my research and through all this new knowledge and through working with Everytown and then Students Demand Action, it took me to realize that school shootings, they're deadly, they're awful, but there is so much more to gun violence. And gun violence is such a huge, multifaceted issue that, you know, it's going to take all hands on deck. And that is also something that honestly I never really processed. You know, we look at things like domestic violence. Domestic violence is awful. When you have a gun in the home, it makes it 10 times more deadly. You know, we look at group violence and community violence. We look at police violence, which is also a form of gun violence. There is suicide and unintentional shootings, and there's just so many facets of gun violence. And I think going deeper into that work as well has really kept me grounded and kept me going. And so that really is just kind of like the short form of my journey with Everytown with Students Demand.
You are touching on a lot of issues that the students here with us are writing about themselves. I mean, so many of the essays speak to gun violence in all its forms. And so I think hearing someone else speak to that as well, and the impact that you're making. I wonder what advice you could offer to them about using their own voices for change.
Yeah, I think for one, well, I'll start by saying that writing and some of the best pieces of work, most of the best pieces of work, are written out of the author's own experience. Even when you look at fiction and fantasy and sci-fi, like oftentimes those books are just metaphors for something that's happening in the author's life, or a major life event that's happening, a major event in history that's happening. And so saying that, I want to convey that fall in love with the notes app on your phone. And I mean that literally, but also not literally, and I'll kind of talk about that. Maybe if you don't have a phone, that's fine. But what I mean is that things happen in your life quickly, and things are happening in this country, in this world very quickly, maybe at your school, in your community. And one way that I've created an outlet for myself is through writing. And even if it's spur of the moment, that's why you need to fall in love with your notes app. If there's something in your life that's happening that you want to write about, you want to have an outlet, and you want to just, let the words flow, pick up a napkin, your notes app, a journal, anything around you, and just start writing, because I think that is going to be so important for young writers, especially, who are living in these really crazy times. You guys are going to be the ones to document and talk about COVID and, racial injustices that are happening right now, and just everything that's going on, not only in this world, but in your lives. And so just being able to put it onto the pen wherever you are, sometimes if there's something happening, but then you're like, oh, okay, I'll just wait next day to write about it, then, there's not, the emotion isn't there anymore. Maybe the drive isn't there. And so making sure that emotion and that drive is sustained by just writing wherever you are. And that includes journaling. I always advocate for journaling, whether that's, at night or in the morning, or even if it's just an informal way of journaling. Just write as much as you can, write as, I don't want to say quickly as you can, but write as immediately as you can. And you can take your time in that, obviously. But yeah, that's what I would say.
I love this. Were you always a prolific writer? Is it something that did you have this voice and realize that it just really needed to spill out? Is this something that you've come into recently? I know you've been published by a lot of different outlets that we talked about. So also, is there a favorite piece that you've written? Talk to me about the writing.
Yeah. So speaking to a favorite piece, I definitely do have a favorite piece, and it's for the reason that I just stated about, writing immediately and putting that emotion and that drive into your essays. And that would be the piece that I have most recently written for Teen Vogue, about how essentially it's about how racism is such a big multifaceted issue. It can't be pinpointed on one person or one entity. It has existed in this country for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of people to break it down and to, bring justice to racism, to communities that we failed. And I think for me, that was an essay that was written out of emotion, honestly. I was scrolling on Twitter, and I remember seeing these people putting blame on one single person for racism, which absolutely, there are people that absolutely perpetuate racism, and there are people that are racist, and that is a very real thing, and those people deserve to, face any sort of backlash that they do. But I think that diminishes the issue, and it, whittles it down too much into something as simplistic as you get rid of this one person and then everything will be great. And that's just not true. I don't believe. I I genuinely believe that it's going to take a lot of work to break racism down in this country. And so scrolling through Twitter and just seeing these people that I know and that I like have trusted and loved for a long time in my life just think that racism is that simple, that was something that I literally pulled out my notes app of my phone and was like, you know what, it's time to start writing. Like, racism is much deeper than any one person, even though that one person might be bad. Like, they need to come out of power, but so do a ton of other people. And so I think that honestly probably is my favorite because it's the most authentic, I believe. And it was the most urgent for me. I've written other pieces that are relevant, but I don't feel that they're as like completely urgent, like this needs to be written down and said right now. And that was something for me that felt, it felt like it needed to be said for me and by me right in this moment. And so I think that's why I do really enjoy that piece. And then your other questions, the questions before that.
Just was when did you start writing, or when did you feel moved to?
Yeah. Honestly, I've loved writing forever. I've always known that I've wanted to do something in writing, whether that's career-wise or just like as a hobby, writing somehow. I remember my mom like enrolled me in all these writing classes because she knew that I just like really liked to write. And even like in elementary school, I was like writing for our like community's kids newspaper, and I was like on the staff for that for like basically all throughout elementary school. I just really enjoyed writing. But I think it was probably in high school. One of my English teachers actually, she had everyone write opinion editorials, op-eds, and she told us like, you guys should I want everyone to submit it to like at least 3 publications or something like that. And I remember her saying that and thinking like, that's not a thing. Like, I can't be published in like an actual like publication. That's absolutely not a thing. I don't know what she's talking about. And honestly, I didn't even submit anything to any publications because I really just thought that she was like crazy. And then a couple years had gone by. That was like my freshman year. Now it's like sophomore year. And once again, I find myself kind of in that situation. I've written this essay. I told some people over at Everytown, like, I wrote this essay, like, I don't really know what I want to do with it. And they were like, you should submit it here. And again, I found myself thinking like, this is not real. Like, what? No, this is not a thing. I've never heard of this before. And so I submitted it to USA Today, and like within 4 days it was published. And that was like an eye-opener for me, that I, at like 15 years old, I think, or 16 years old, can write about something that I find super meaningful, that I am passionate about. And not only will other people enjoy it and they'll like it and they'll want to read it, but they'll also want other people to read it and want the world to see it. And I think that's just been something that's really inspiring for me, and has, it's let me know that young people's voices are so, so, so powerful. Because, like I said, at 15, I'm just like writing something up random that I'm writing out of emotion, and now it's published on USA Today and they're tweeting about it to their like millions of followers. And so that's just really amazing to me. And if I'm not conveying this well to all the students that are here, please do that. Take risks. And trust me, I've gotten my fair share of no's. I really have. I have written essays where the essay that I was just talking about, that was my favorite. I wrote it in like maybe 45 minutes. I sent it out, and I got a response within like 5 minutes, and they're like, yeah, sure, we'll publish it. And that was like a rare experience, a very rare experience. I've written other things, and I've published it to like multiple places, or I've sent it to multiple places, and I've gotten like 35 no's. And so You know, it's okay to get the no. That's not the end of the world. There are so many writers out there. There are so many publications out there that, you know, you're not going to get it every chance you try, but that's absolutely okay. But taking the risk is what needs to be done. I really believe that, because all of your voices are powerful. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here today.
Ryan, I couldn't have said it better, and I hope that all of our students are taking note. That's actually why this is also a students only event. This is a chance also that you guys will have to ask questions, take some advice from Ryan. I did want to ask, just before we did move to public questions, is all of this, all of the work that you do, whether it is with Everytown or Students Demand Action or the writing, is a lot. It's a lot of work on top of what I imagine was a pretty hefty school load. You're going to be starting Yale next fall. So how do you balance it all? How have you balanced it all? And what kind of support have you had?
Yeah, I think honestly, it's all about prioritizing. Find the things in your life that you really, really, really care about. And honestly, like, I'm glad the parents aren't here, because I don't want them to hear me say this, but for some people, that may not be school. That may be activism. That may be writing. And obviously, keep your school in check. Keep that 100%, absolutely. But, you know, if there is something happening at school that is, you know, keeping you down, maybe you are feeling the pressure, you're feeling this weight, whatever, and you want to just give yourself a break from the homework or the readings, and you want to just spend time writing and, you know, sitting in your thoughts and putting that onto paper, I say absolutely take that opportunity, take that time, spend that time, because self-care is so important. And for all of us sitting here, we're all writers. Writing is one of our forms of self-care and putting out onto paper what it is that we're feeling. And so I want you all to know that it's okay to take a break and to spend time and to prioritize yourself. And even if that isn't through writing, even if that's through another outlet that you have, you know, I have been a dancer my whole life, competitive dancing. And so that's also been an outlet for me, you know, being with my friends at the dance studio. And that's been an outlet for me for my whole life as well. And so I want you all to know that it's okay to take that break and take that time. And same thing, taking time from your writing. If you feel like you are under any sort of pressure to write or anything for whatever reason, take that break to do whatever else, whether that's doing homework or, you know, using another outlet. Because especially knowing that you all have written about violence, that can be especially triggering, and it can be emotional, and it can take a toll on your mental health. And so and I've been in that situation where I felt like I have to write something, but you need to give yourself that break. Like, make sure that you are 100%, because nothing you do is going to be 100% until you are. And so, yeah, I hope that makes sense. So like I said, don't like just blow off your schoolwork. Don't think that is like unimportant now because I've said this, but you know, it's okay to just give yourself a break.
No, I actually really love that advice, Ryan. We have about 15 minutes left, so I do want to be able to move to audience questions, see if anyone has one. I know we've got 2 hand raised, and I will turn it over to Jemica for that.
Yes, so we actually have a hand raise from a student. I know that we have 2 staff members who have hand raised, so we'll start with Elizabeth, our student who would like to ask the first question. And I'm unmuting you now.
Hi. I had a question about for students like me who feel like they want to do something about the current situation we're in with our president, what do you recommend that we do to be involved, to make a change?
Yeah. I think one thing that's so important and underrated is having conversations with the people that you know. I feel like oftentimes people get so caught up in like, oh, what am I going to do at the national level? Or what am I going to do that's super visible? One thing that really should be prioritized, especially with students like you, is talking to your peers, your classmates, your teachers, even family members. If you're like sitting at the dinner table, start a dialogue about voting, about the election, about things that are happening right now, because especially from students, but also just from people that are in your network, our words are going to be so much powerful than anyone else's. Anything that I'm going to tell my friend is like 30 times more powerful probably than what they're seeing on television by like a prominent celebrity or something, like, because that, that's great, that's nice. But if I, as someone close to them, someone they know, and then again, as a young person, am telling them like, this is what I care about a lot, this is why I care about it, this is why you should care about it, and this is what you can do about it. Hopefully you're talking to someone who's old enough to vote. That is something that's going to carry weight with them. And, if they are stuck in their ways, whatever those ways may be, and they don't want to, see eye to eye with you, then that's okay. You're not going to win every battle, but at least you had that conversation, you had that dialogue, and that is going to stick with them.
Awesome, thanks again. So we have a question from a student named Delilah in the chat. She says, hello, Ryan. In the introduction at the beginning, you mentioned that you were about to begin university. Are you going to pursue a professional career in writing, or will that be something that you do on the side?
That's a good question, honestly. And I think it's good for me to tell you this now that you're young. You don't have to know what you want to do with your life. You guys are in middle school. That's okay. I don't know what I want to do with my life, and I'm 18. And I'm going to Yale. A lot of the students at Yale know exactly what they're going to do. They want to like be a doctor, or they want to be a lawyer or something else. And honestly, I don't know what I want to do. I love journalism a lot. It gives me the opportunity to write and to express myself. And so that's always been a career that I've looked at. But there's so much other stuff out there as well. I think journalism is like such a broad term that I never realized. There's so many different roles in like the journalism industry. And so I am looking a lot, but writing is something that I would love to have be at the center core of what I'm doing. And if that's not a path that I choose, then I absolutely will continue to write on the side.
Awesome. So we have another question from another student in the chat, Caroline. She says, hey, Ryan, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. What was your immediate reaction when you saw the death of George Floyd and other shootings of minority people in the news?
Yeah. Honestly, I was taking a bit of a break from social media when it happened. And so it hadn't really been reported a lot in the news. And so I hadn't really heard of it at all, honestly, until I went back on Instagram one day and every single story post was justice for George Floyd, justice for George Floyd. And there are things that are happening in the news all the time that deserve attention. And I know which people I follow who are going to bring attention to those ideas. But when I was scrolling through, it was people who have never spoken on anything ever in their lives. Like they don't post anything. They don't even talk about it like in person. They don't talk about these issues or anything. And that's when I knew like something's up. Like this isn't a normal situation. Something's going down. And so I did my research, and one thing that one thing that like I'm always careful about is, you know, that the video of him and the police officer on his neck was going around a lot. And personally, I don't like to watch those videos. I don't like to see police brutality on camera. I don't need to see that. I think honestly, it's an unfortunate reality, but the reason those videos become so popular is because people need to see the violence to actually believe that it exists. Otherwise, you know, they're not going to care about it. They don't believe that it exists. And so I was doing research. I was trying to avoid those videos. And when I finally got to like a good substantive article that like told me everything I needed to know, I was hurt. And I feel like in this country, we've become desensitized a little bit to violence at times. Even, you know, with these videos going around, that's a little bit of a sign that we have become a bit desensitized, that we can watch these sorts of videos and continue to share them around and around and around. And so I was hurt. That is something that I just, the fact that I'm even speechless, I feel should kind of let you guys know how hurt I was. And I went to multiple protests with, you know, family and my sisters all throughout. And just to see the impact that it had on this country and the amount of support that racial injustices or racial justice was having, you know, honestly, it still wasn't that encouraging, if I'm being completely honest, because when we look at whether or not justice has been served, in many instances, it really hasn't been. And so I still feel like I'm kind of in this place of hurt for these victims, but then also just the entire Black community. And so, yeah, I'm just going to be completely honest. I was hurt and I am hurt, and that's okay, because the things that are happening are wrong and they're scary and they're divisive and it's awful. And so I want you to know that it's okay to feel that way, and I want you to know that I do feel that way.
Awesome. Thanks again for touching on that and sharing your sadness and the sadness of many other people. So we have a live question coming from a student. His name is Jamin. I don't know how to pronounce it, but hopefully he will pronounce it himself. So we're going to go ahead and unmute you now.
First of all, noted. Don't disregard school. Also, yeah, it's Jamin. Thank you. I want to thank you personally for giving us your example. It's truly inspiring. Also, the fact that you're taking matters into your own hands, taking action, that's also very inspiring. But also, I was just wondering, like in cases, people who've actually been in a city that had that personally experienced gun violence per se, what would you suggest them to do, like if they want to take action on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that kind of gets a little lost, and like there's a reason why I say gun violence prevention and not gun control, because they are very different. Gun violence prevention is a whole robust idea that there are systemic issues, is a cyclical issue in this country that causes gun violence and that perpetuates violence in communities. And so gun control is, you know, that's a term that's been used and it's been weaponized, unfortunately, and it has to do with the firearm itself. And while, yes, I believe that obviously there are laws that need to be put in place about firearms, there is also the notion that gun violence prevention applies to other areas in our like political system. You know, there's education that's affecting gun violence, healthcare is affecting gun violence. There's so many issues. And so one thing that I would say for young people to get involved is find community programs in your area, because more often than not, these community programs exist to prevent gun violence or just violence in general. Because, you know, these sorts of programs give students or give whoever it is that they're serving people a place, an outlet. Even looking at like daycares and childcare. A lot of communities don't have childcare, and that seems like such a trivial thing. But if you don't have daycare, and like, what are you doing? You're out of school now. Maybe you don't have any after school activities, but you can't reach home quite yet. Like, what are you doing right now? You can't be in childcare because you don't have access to that. And so I'd say as young people, really, really support the organizations in your community. And organizations, like I said, that you may not realize are doing anti-violence work. It could be an organization that is hosting music lessons for students or something, or doing dance lessons, or after-school tutoring, because those programs are working to prevent these cycles of violence. And so, you know, bringing your friends and bringing people from your school and yourself and uplifting these programs and doing what you can to help them out, I think is a really, really, really good way for young people to be supporting anti-violence work in their communities.
Ryan, thank you so much. We have a couple more questions in the chat. I know we only have a few minutes left, but I definitely wanted to get to them. The first is from student Aina Marzia, and she asks, I was wondering how exactly you were able to get published in Teen Vogue and USA Today.
Yeah, every outlet has a different way of doing things. When I touched on the story I did for USA Today, they have a singular email that you email your essay to, and that's where all of their essays are emailed to, and they have multiple people running that email, and someone will read that essay and say, I like it, like, let's pass it through to the higher up person to see if they like it. If that person likes it, then you get the okay. So some outlets are super easy like that. USA Today was very easy in that sense. The Atlantic is very easy. There are tons that are like that. New York Times is easy in that sense, but the caliber of writing is like so high that it is a little more difficult for it to get onto that higher person, but the sending in process is very, very easy. And then there are some trickier outlets. Teen Vogue was trickier. With Teen Vogue, you have to know a reporter, a staff writer for them. And I didn't know the person that I sent it to. I just found them on Twitter and their email was in their bio. But if you don't know to do that, then like you don't, then you know what I mean? Like, because I don't know writers at Teen Vogue. And so if I didn't do that, then I would not have been published there. I would not even know how to get published there. And so there are some places that are trickier like that. Same with BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed actually reached out to me. I don't know how that came about. But yeah, it is easy though. I will say it's easy. One thing that helped me a lot is Googling a publication that you know of and typing in opinion editorials after it. So like Teen Vogue opinion editorials, or even like Teen Vogue submissions actually might be better. So like USA Today submissions, 17 Magazine submissions, Refinery 29 submissions. And usually it'll show you and it'll tell you how that website or how that publication accepts their essays. And like I said, that could either be through email, they could do it directly on their website. They might like, no, we only invite people or we only have staff writers write. But there's so much out there, and it's not even like the big major or the major publications. There are so many publications out there, even ones tailored for students writing. And so, yeah, and I said this kind of at the beginning, but please take that risk. There is absolutely nothing to lose if they say no to you. If anything, the times that I've gotten no's, they've given me feedback on my writing, which is also awesome because it gives you a chance to you know, make edits and kind of see what you could have done different. And even if there are edits that you don't like, I've gotten edits that I don't like, at least there's feedback in that sense. So it's not just like a completely blind no. But yes, typing in publication submissions afterward is your best bet. And looking up journalists on Twitter that you like and finding their emails is also a really safe bet as well.
Ryan, that is very, very helpful advice. Students, please take note. I hope you jotted those down. Otherwise, again, anything that comes up that you didn't quite catch, feel free to email us, ask us in the chat, and we will follow up with it as well. One last question in the chat. I know we're over time, but I really wanted to make sure we got to it. Is from Ekelin, and she says, "Thank you for being here. Now that we are doing things online, what are some things to help make a change in our community?"
Yeah, that's a really good question, honestly, because even like I'll let you guys in on a little secret. For Students Demand Action, we were planning a huge voter registration campaign. We had like celebrities and like big people who were going to help us out with it, and it just had to fall through because of COVID-19 and because everything was online and people weren't organizing together. But we ended up pivoting it to what we now call our virtual field offices, where students are working together online over Zoom and group chats to register voters and to work in gun violence prevention space with people in their states. And so finding innovative ways, honestly, I can't give you the answer because everyone is still learning. But, you know, I've said this before, but one of our students had a movie night using Netflix Party, which is a Google Chrome extension, if you've never heard of it, where everyone can watch a movie together and chat about the movie together. You know, that was an innovative way that we were able to get together and connect. Zoom, I think, is a great tool now. It's a tool that everyone seems to know how to use now, that everyone is using. So it's easier to use Zoom than ever before. And so utilizing tools like Zoom, social media is a huge way to be using your voice as well. Posting on Instagram stories. I have posted a couple things on Instagram throughout like COVID. I'm not a huge Instagram poster, but the things that I have posted, I have used, you know, I've used the caption space to inform and to let people know where I'm at and what I'm thinking and just things that are going on. And also, I know one thing that our community is doing, again, this is not the same for every community, but our school newspaper has been opening up, kind of similar to what I was just talking about. They've been opening up submissions to not only their journalists on staff or in that class, anyone can submit something. And so that's a great way to reach your community because, you know, our school newspaper, pretty much every student reads that. And so if I were to write, I'm not in high school anymore, so I couldn't write something even if I wanted to, but if I were to write an essay for them, I know that that'd reach my school, my community, probably parents as well. And so, yeah, finding innovative ways, like I said, I can't give the answer because everyone's situation is different. I think of like bigger communities probably are having bigger issues in regards to than smaller communities. I'm sure it's a little easier to reach everyone if you're in a smaller community or if you're in a tight-knit, maybe a rural area, whereas if you're in like an urban area, which has like hundreds of thousands in the population. So yeah, I hate that I can't give you a better answer, but yeah.
Ryan, I think you've actually done an incredible job. We're all figuring it out. Obviously, we're here on Zoom together instead of being in DC. And so I think we're all just kind of making it work as best we can. Your advice I found to be very helpful. I hope our students did as well. Thank you so much for being here. And I would love to spend the rest of the afternoon, but we are being told that we are at time. So thank you for joining us from the West
you.
Coast.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
And definitely, any students that have follow-up questions, again, feel free to email them to us or put them in the chat, and we will happily pass them along to Ryan. So thanks again.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Professor of Literature and Media at the University Paris 8 in France. I've written a dozen books, mostly in French, but none of them is as well written and as grabbing as what I will be reading for you now. This is a text that has been written by Colin Pato, and he's the finalist for the Do the Right Thing competition in the great city of Chicago, Illinois. And he wrote a very poignant story, which I will read excerpts from. This will be an abridged version of his original text. I hear a ringing sound from my phone. It's 7 a.m. school alarm. I don't want to get up. Both of my arms hurt because of the cuts I gave myself. Cutting is the only way I can cope with my problems. I can talk to my dad about my problems, not after my mom died in a drive-by shooting. It was so random. All I could think was, why her? What did I do to deserve this? After mom died, dad became distant with me and became angry at the world. If I tried to approach him, he would yell at me, telling me to shut up. I tiredly get up and head to the bathroom. I don't even want to look at myself. I don't want to see the face that has disappointed everyone. After I brush my teeth, I put bandages on my cuts and change into my school uniform. I check the clock. It's 7:20 a.m. I head into the living room, and after contemplating on what to do, I decide to sit down on the couch and watch TV for a while. I stumble onto the Disney Channel. That was a big part of my childhood. I loved the goofy characters and the shows. After a while, my dad's bedroom door opens. What the hell is going on out here? And why are you still watching those cartoons? It's already 7:50. It's been 30 minutes? I guess I'm more a failure than I thought. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'll just run to school. You better be sorry. Now go on to school before I get angrier. I run towards the door and get out. At school, I walk in the building and take a deep breath. What will the teacher think when I come late? What will the students think? Will me being late make them think of me as more of a worthless failure, I thought. After receiving my tardy slip, I start walking towards my class, my heart beating faster each step I take. I opened the door to the surprise of my class. The teacher looked at me and said, 15 minutes late, I see. What's the reason? I overslept. The teacher took my tardy slip, went back to teaching. I saw one of my bullies look at me and say something to another bully. They both laughed. It's now lunch, and as usual, I sit alone. Turn my head up and see one of my bullies. Hey, what you eating there? Oh, that's right, you never eat. You can't even afford a $2 lunch, he shouts. Oh, what? You just gonna cry? Now, no, you're not gonna stand up for yourself, you coward? I'll give you something to cry about. The next thing I know, the bully punches me in the eye. I start crying even more and run out into the bathroom. Now, it's 3 p.m. The bell finally rings. I start walking home, but then I see a group of bullies again. Not today, I thought. I started running, the faster I've ever run, fueled by the fear of getting beat up again. The bullies start running after me, but I was faster this time. I finally reach my porch and enter my house. I see my dad, bottle in hand, catch a glimpse of my face. I grab a knife and run into my bedroom. Hey, what's with the black eye? And what's with the knife? My dad shouts. With tear in my eyes, I sit down on the edge of my bed and bring the knife up to my chest, ready to kill myself. But I decide it's not time for me to go. But there is help somewhere out there. I drop the knife. I need to make a change in my life. And my dad needs to as well. Dad, we need to talk, I say, with hope in my voice. According to Psych Central, approximately 20% of teens experience depression before they reach adulthood. Please, don't let one of these teenagers be someone you know.
I want to take this opportunity to give special thanks and recognition to our amazing teachers, without whom this would be possible. Your tireless dedication and work is a big part of what shapes and feeds the minds and spirits of our young generation. No matter how challenging the circumstances are, as we have witnessed these past few months, you continue to educate your students, all while creating new ways of doing so. In an effort to provide you, the educators, with tools that may be helpful during the upcoming academic year, Do the Right Thing has created a Nearpod lesson plan for you to use in your classroom. It's completely interactive, highlighting the 3 questions Do the Right Thing asks, and enables you to customize it. So whether you're teaching face-to-face in school, a hybrid model, or distance learning, you have a tool that will help you create impact in your classrooms. You can access this lesson plan on our new Do the Right Thing website at DtWT.org and simply click on the tab Challenge Resources.
Woohoo! What's up, guys? It's Nate, Big Easy Lawful of the world famous Harlem Globetrotters. Thank you so much for having me back with the national campaign to stop violence. Now, I've been with the Globetrotters for 15 seasons and I've been to over 90 countries. And one of the coolest things I've ever done was come to DC, sit down and listen to these great speeches for these brave kids to talk about how violence has affected them at home and in their neighborhoods. Now, I want you to know that touched me, and when I was there, I was able to get on stage and tell a story about violence had affected me growing up in my neighborhood in New Orleans. Now, no matter what you do, and I'm an example of it, where you come up at, where you grew up, and the things you went through as a kid does not mean that that's how you're going to live the rest of your life. You can change that, you can be positive, you can be strong. Everybody, continue to be strong, continue to change your neighborhood, stay safe, have some fun, and no matter what happens now, it's going to be greater later. Now, let's make sure we're being healthy and we staying safe, because I would love to do this next year in person. All right, guys, I'm out. Thank you. Woo!
Congratulations to the students for not only making a difference in your communities, but also helping to create a safer, more peaceful society. Unfortunately, like some of you, I've lost close friends to senseless violence. So this is personal for me. That's why we must salute young leaders like yourselves for literally stepping up to the challenge. We recognize and honor you. There's nothing like harnessing the energy of the youth, and you are the change agents that spark the world. Our future starts with you, so keep up the great work and keep leading us to a better tomorrow. From one ambassador to another, thank you. And to the national campaign to stop violence, congratulations on 25 consecutive years of fighting violence and making life safer for all. Not only are you to be commended, but we need you now in this world more than ever. You are appreciated, you are truly amazing, and we love you. Keep making the world a better place to live in.
What a great kickoff to our recognition weekend. In addition to the honor of having all of our Do the Right Thing students, parents, educators, coordinators, and chairs with us today, we are also so grateful for the participation of our special guests, Aija, Mayrock, and Ryan Pascal. As part of our students' takeaway gifts, you will be receiving a copy of Aija's book, The Survival Guide to Bullying. As we close out today's events, I would like to welcome you all back tomorrow at 1 p.m. to join us for another action-packed day of amazing programs. And students, make sure you stay tuned for an exciting announcement during tomorrow's closing remarks. Looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow. I now leave you with more readings from our Do the Right Thing student writings, followed by a visual presentation of Sunday's itinerary. Thank you and stay safe.